Admiral Vexthar stood on the command deck of the Federation flagship, his 4 eyes watching the holographic display with growing concern. The Cathari war fleet had grown stronger over the past 3 cycles. Every battle ended the same way. The Federation lost ships. The Federation lost lives. The Federation lost hope. "Admiral," said Commander Rylus, her scaled face showing worry, "the Council has sent another message. They want answers." Vexthar let out a tired breath through his gills. The Galactic Federation had existed for over 10,000 years. It contained more than 200 species from across the galaxy. They had built great things together. They had created peace, but peace had made them soft. When the Cathari came from the outer rim with their hunger for conquest, the Federation had forgotten how to fight. "Tell them I am working on a solution," Vexthar said. But he had no solution. The Federation fleet had better ships. They had more resources. They had superior technology in almost every way, yet they kept losing. The Cathari seemed to know what the Federation would do before they did it. Their tactics were brutal but effective. They struck fast, hit hard, and disappeared before the Federation could respond properly. Vexthar walked to his private office and sat down heavily. On his desk was a data pad containing reports from the last 50 battles, all defeats or costly victories that felt like defeats. He had studied every engagement. He had analyzed every decision. He could not understand what was going wrong. His door chimed. "Enter," he said. A young officer named Trell walked in. He was from the Vellani species, small and covered in soft blue fur. He served as the Admiral's intelligence officer. "Sir, I found something interesting," Trell said. "You asked me to research species with strong military histories, species that might help us. And there is one species that stands out. They call themselves humans." Vexthar searched his memory. He had heard the name before. Humans were a young species. They had only achieved faster than light travel about 200 years ago. They had joined the Federation just 50 years past. They were considered unremarkable by most standards. Their technology was basic. Their ships were simple. They had contributed little to Federation advancement. "Why would humans help us?" Vexthar asked. "They are young, they have no great technology, their ships are basic at best." "That is true, Admiral, but their history is different." Trell handed over a data pad. "Humans spent most of their existence fighting each other. They had wars that killed millions of their own kind. Wars over land, over resources, over ideas, over religion, over things that seem trivial to us. They developed thousands of different ways to kill each other. They made fighting into an art form." Vexthar looked at the data. What he saw surprised him. The human species had been at war with itself almost constantly for their entire history. They had developed weapons of mass destruction that could end their own civilization. They had used them. They had survived. They had kept fighting. "This is disturbing," Vexthar said. "Why would we want such a violent species involved in our fleet?" "Because of this," Trell said, showing another file. "Look at their tactical evolution. Every generation of humans developed new ways to fight. They invented concepts like flanking, ambush, guerrilla warfare, combined arms tactics, psychological warfare, and something they call deception operations. They do not fight fair. They fight to win." Vexthar studied the information more carefully. The Federation species had evolved differently. Most had developed cooperation early in their history. They worked together. They built things. They did not need to fight because they found peaceful solutions. This had served them well for millennia, but now they faced an enemy that did not want peace. "You are suggesting we ask humans to teach us how to fight?" Vexthar asked. "I am suggesting we ask them to fight alongside us. Better yet, to command alongside us. Their officers think differently than ours. They see things we miss. They anticipate problems we never consider." Vexthar was quiet for a long moment. It was a desperate idea, asking a young, primitive species to help lead the greatest fleet in the galaxy. The council would think he had gone mad. They would question his judgment. They might even remove him from command. But the council was not watching their ships burn in space. The council was not sending letters to families of the dead. The council was not running out of options. "Arrange a meeting," Vexthar said. "I want to speak with their military leadership." 3 days later, Vexthar found himself on Earth. The human homeworld was nothing like he expected. It was chaotic, loud, full of energy and motion. Billions of humans lived on this small blue planet packed into cities that stretched to the horizon. They seemed to never stop moving, never stop building, never stop changing. Where Federation worlds were ordered and calm, Earth buzzed with constant activity. He met General Sarah Chen in a building they called the Pentagon. She was a small female by human standards, with dark hair touched with gray and eyes that seemed to see through him. Despite her size, she commanded the room simply by existing in it. Vexthar had met many great leaders in his long career. He recognized the quality in her immediately. "Admiral Vexthar," she said, shaking his hand in the human custom. "I've read your request. You want human officers to serve in the Federation fleet, against the Cathari. Yes, we have studied your species. We believe your tactical abilities could help us turn the war around." General Chen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "You've ignored us for 50 years, said we were too primitive to contribute anything meaningful to the Federation. Now you need us to fight your war." Vexthar felt shame burn through him. She was right. The Federation had treated humans as second-class members. They had given them minor roles and minor consideration. They had looked down on them as barbarians who had barely crawled out of their caves. Now he came asking for their help. "You are correct," he said. "We were wrong. We did not understand what humanity could offer. But I am not here because of politics. I am here because my people are dying. Because the Cathari will not stop until they have consumed everything we have built. Because I have no other options." General Chen studied him for a long moment. Her eyes were calculating, measuring. Then she nodded. "I appreciate the honesty. We've been watching your war. Frankly, Admiral, your tactics are terrible." Vexthar blinked all 4 eyes. "Terrible." "Your fleet formations are predictable. You telegraph your intentions hours before you attack. You follow rigid battle plans that don't adapt to changing conditions. You fight with honor when you should fight with cunning. You engage when you should retreat. You retreat when you should attack. You let the enemy dictate the terms of every battle. We follow the principles of combat that have worked for thousands of years. Against enemies who follow the same principles, the Cathari don't. They fight like humans used to fight, dirty, unpredictable, ruthless. They do whatever it takes to win." General Chen leaned forward. "We know how to beat them because we used to be them." Vexthar felt something he had not felt in a long time: hope. "Will you help us?" "On one condition. Our officers don't just advise, they command. Equal status with your admirals and captains. Full authority to change tactics as needed. If you want humans to save your fleet, you need to trust us to do it our way." It was a lot to ask. The Federation had never given such authority to a species so young. The Council would resist. The other admirals would complain. It would cause political problems for years. But Vexthar thought of the burning ships, the dead crews, the losing war. "Agreed," he said. General Chen extended her hand again. "Then welcome to humanity's way of war, Admiral. I hope you're ready for it." Vexthar was not sure he was ready, but he had no other choice. 3 weeks later, the first group of human officers arrived at Fleet Command Station Nexus. There were 50 of them, selected from Earth's various militaries. They ranged in rank from lieutenant to rear admiral. They came from different countries, different backgrounds, different specialties, but they all shared the same look in their eyes, the look of predators who had finally been let off their leash. Rear Admiral James Wright was their leader. He was a tall man with skin the color of dark wood and a voice that could fill a room without shouting. He had commanded human naval forces in 3 major conflicts on Earth before humans joined the Federation. He had never lost a battle. His reputation among humans was legendary. "Welcome to Nexus," Commander Rylus said, greeting them in the docking bay. "Admiral Vexthar is looking forward to meeting all of you." Wright looked around the station with interest. It was larger than anything humans had built. The technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Advanced systems hummed quietly everywhere, but his expression showed no intimidation, only calculation. "Nice station," he said. "How many escape pods?" Rylus blinked. "Excuse me." "Escape pods, lifeboats, emergency evacuation systems, how many?" I would have to check. Why do you ask?" "Because the first thing I want to know about any ship or station is how to get my people off it if things go wrong. The second thing I want to know is where the weak points are that enemies might exploit. You think like a defender, Commander. I think like an attacker. I look at this beautiful station and I see 10 different ways to destroy it." Rylus was not sure how to respond. No Federation officer had ever asked about escape pods as their first question. They always asked about weapons, shields, or crew capacity. They focused on strength, not vulnerability. The humans were already different. Admiral Vexthar met them in the main briefing room. Holographic displays showed the current state of the war. Red markers indicated Cathari positions. Blue markers showed Federation forces. There was far too much red. The map told a story of retreat and defeat. "The Cathari currently control 12 systems that used to be ours," Vexthar explained. "They are pushing toward the inner worlds. If they reach Velen or Rylax, millions will die. Our industrial capacity will be crippled. The war will be lost." Wright studied the display. His eyes moved quickly, taking in information that had taken Federation analysts days to compile. "What's their supply situation?" "Their what?" "Supply lines, logistics. How are they feeding their fleet? Ships need fuel, crews need food, weapons need ammunition. Where is it coming from?" Vexthar looked at Rylus. She looked back with equal confusion. It was not a question they had thought to ask. "We have not analyzed that in detail," Rylus admitted. "We focus on enemy fleet positions and strength." Wright smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "There's your first problem. You're fighting the enemy fleet. You should be fighting the enemy war machine. A ship without fuel is just floating metal. An army without food starves. Cut the supply lines and the fleet dies on its own." Captain Maria Santos stepped forward. She was a human woman with short dark hair and a scar running down her left cheek. The scar was from an explosion during one of Earth's wars. She specialized in something humans called electronic warfare. "Show me your communication intercepts," she said. "I want to see how the Cathari coordinate their forces." "We have been unable to decrypt their communications," Vexthar said. "Their codes are very sophisticated." "That's fine. I don't need to read the messages. I need to see the patterns. When do they talk? How much do they talk? Who talks to whom? Communication patterns reveal command structure. Command structure reveals vulnerability. Every military has weak points. We just need to find theirs." Another human, a young lieutenant named Viktor Petrov, was already examining the tactical display. He had been a tank commander on Earth before being recruited for this mission. He understood ground combat, but space combat followed similar principles. "Your fleet formations," he said slowly. "Why do you bunch your ships together like this?" "Concentrated force is the principle of naval combat," Vexthar explained. "United we are strong. Together we can focus our firepower and overwhelm the enemy." "United you are a target," Petrov said. "One missile volley, one coordinated attack, and you lose multiple ships at once. Humans learned this lesson the hard way hundreds of years ago. We call it don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need dispersion, separation, independence of action. Let your captains make decisions instead of waiting for orders. Vexthar felt overwhelmed. These humans had been on the station for less than an hour, and they were already finding flaws in tactics that the Federation had used for centuries. Tactics that had been studied and refined by beings far older and wiser than these young primitives. "You question everything," he said. "That's how we stayed alive," Wright replied. "Humans evolved as both predator and prey on our homeworld. We had to think like both. We had to question every assumption because wrong assumptions got us killed. No offense, Admiral, but your species had it too easy. You evolved without threats. You forgot what it means to be truly afraid. Fear makes you smart. Fear makes you careful. Fear makes you dangerous." Over the next few days, the human officers spread throughout the fleet. They observed, they questioned, they challenged. They made the Federation crews uncomfortable with their constant asking of why. Why do you do it this way? Why not try something else? What happens if this fails? What is your backup plan? Many Federation officers resented them. These young primitives dared to question methods that had worked for millennia. Who did they think they were? Some officers complained to Vexthar. Some refused to work with their human advisors. Some tried to have them removed. But some officers began to listen, began to think, began to see what the humans saw, began to understand that tradition was not the same as wisdom. Commander Thex was one of them. He commanded the cruiser Starlight, and he had lost 3 crew members in the last battle, good officers who had trusted him to keep them safe. He was tired of losing. He was ready to try something new. "Tell me," he said to the human lieutenant assigned to his ship, "what would you do differently?" Lieutenant Sarah Park was small even by human standards. She had specialized in something called asymmetric warfare, which apparently meant fighting enemies much stronger than yourself. She had studied ancient Earth conflicts where small forces had defeated great empires through cunning and persistence. "Your ship," she said, "what is its main purpose?" "It is a patrol cruiser. Medium weapons, medium shields, versatile." "So it's not the best at anything specific." Thex felt defensive. "It is a good ship. It serves its function well." "I'm sure it is. But when you fight the Cathari, you try to match them ship for ship, cruiser versus cruiser. You fight their fight. Instead, you should be asking what your ship can do that theirs cannot. Every vessel has unique capabilities. Every crew has special talents." "And what is that?" "I don't know yet. That's what we need to figure out. Every ship has strengths the enemy doesn't expect. Every crew has skills that can be used in new ways. The goal is not to fight the battle the enemy expects. The goal is to fight a battle they never imagined." Thex thought about this for a long time. His entire training had been about meeting the enemy head-on, about courage and determination and fighting with honor. The humans seemed to think honor was less important than winning. It went against everything he had learned, everything he believed. Maybe they were right. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. Cathari scouts were detected in the Nexar system, just 3 jumps from fleet command. Admiral Vexthar prepared to send a standard response fleet, 15 ships, strong formation, by the book. But Admiral Wright stopped him. "Wait," Wright said. "This is a probe. They're testing your response. If you send a fleet, they learn exactly how you react to threats. They learn your speed, your numbers, your formation. They learn everything they need to beat you in a real engagement. So what do you suggest?" "Don't respond." Vexthar was shocked. "Do nothing. Let them scout our territory unopposed." "Do nothing they can see. Quietly reposition 2 destroyer groups to flanking positions behind asteroids where they can't be detected. Let the scouts come. Let them see an empty system. Let them report back that this area is undefended. Then, when they send a raiding force to exploit the weakness, we close the trap. But what if they attack before we are ready? Then we fight, but on our terms, not theirs. The point is to make them think they know what we'll do, then do something different. It's called misdirection. Humans have been using it since we threw rocks at each other in caves. Vexthar felt deeply uncertain. Everything in his training said to respond immediately to threats, to show strength, to not appear weak. Weakness invited aggression. Strength deterred it. But the humans kept winning wars with their strange ideas. Maybe it was time to trust them. "Very well," he said. "We do it your way, but if this fails, I will hold you responsible." Wright nodded. "Fair enough, now let's get to work." The Cathari took the bait. 3 days after the scout ships reported, a raiding fleet of 20 ships entered the Nexar system. They expected easy pickings, an undefended system, supplies to steal, maybe civilians to capture. They found 2 Federation destroyers waiting. Just 2 destroyers against 20 warships. The Cathari commander must have laughed at such a poor defense. 2 ships trying to defend an entire system. It was pathetic. He ordered an immediate attack, eager for an easy victory. That was his first mistake. The destroyers did not form up for a standard engagement. Instead, they split apart, moving in opposite directions at maximum speed. The Cathari fleet had to divide its attention. Some ships chased one destroyer, some chased the other. Their tight formation spread out across space. Their concentrated force became scattered force. That was when the hidden forces struck. 2 groups of Federation ships emerged from behind a gas giant's moons. They had been running silent, no engines, no shields, no signals, just cold metal drifting in space. The Cathari had no idea they were there because they had not thought to look. The Federation forces hit the scattered Cathari from multiple angles at once. Lieutenant Petrov had helped design the attack pattern. He called it crossing the T, an old naval tactic from Earth's oceans. It concentrated firepower on individual enemy ships while minimizing their ability to fire back. 8 Cathari ships were destroyed in the first 90 seconds. Explosions lit up the void of space. The rest tried to regroup, but Captain Santos had another surprise. Her electronic warfare systems began broadcasting false signals. Ghost ships appeared on Cathari sensors. Fake communications filled their channels. They could not tell real from illusion. They could not tell friend from enemy. The Cathari fleet fell apart. Some ships fired at targets that did not exist. Some collided while trying to reform their line. Some fled in random directions, making themselves easy targets for pursuing Federation vessels. Their coordination was destroyed. Their command structure was broken. When it was over, 17 of the 20 Cathari ships had been destroyed or captured. The Federation lost 1 destroyer, with most of her crew rescued. It was the most one-sided victory in the entire war. Admiral Vexthar stared at the after-action reports with all 4 eyes wide. "How?" he asked. "How did you know this would work?" Wright sat across from him, looking tired but satisfied. "We didn't know for sure. That's the thing about combat. You never know for sure. But we understood some basic principles. The enemy expected a conventional response. We gave them something unconventional. The enemy expected us to defend. We attacked. The enemy expected to see everything. We hid. We took what they thought they knew and turned it against them." But the risk. There's always risk. The question is whether the risk is worth the potential gain. Sending your standard fleet would have resulted in a standard battle. Maybe you win, maybe you lose. Probably both sides take heavy damage. This way, we got a decisive victory with minimal losses. The math works out. Vexthar struggled to process this. The Federation way was to minimize risk, to be cautious, to preserve forces. The human way seemed to be the opposite. Take risks, but take smart risks. Accept that some plans would fail, but make sure the plans that worked were devastating. "The Council will want a full briefing," Vexthar said. "Give them one, show them the results. Numbers don't lie. 17-1 is a result that speaks for itself." The Council briefing went better than Vexthar expected. The High Councilors had been skeptical of the human initiative. Some had called it desperate. Some had called it insulting to Federation tradition. Some had questioned Vexthar's sanity. But the victory in Nexar system changed minds. Not all minds, but enough. We authorize expanded human integration into fleet operations, the senior counselor announced. Admiral Wright will be given command of Task Force Hammer, with full authority to conduct offensive operations against Cathari forces. Wright accepted the command with a simple nod. He did not make speeches. He did not promise victory. He just got to work. Task Force Hammer became something new in the galaxy. Human officers mixed with Federation crews. Different species learned different ways of thinking. The humans taught aggression, deception, adaptability. The Federation species taught patience, cooperation, technical expertise. Together, they became more than either alone. Lieutenant Park trained Commander Thex and his crew in ambush tactics. They practiced hiding their ship's signatures, waiting in perfect silence for hours, then striking with maximum violence and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The Starlight became a ghost ship, feared by Cathari patrols throughout the sector. Captain Santos built an entire electronic warfare division. She taught Federation communications officers how to deceive, how to confuse, how to turn the enemy's own systems against them. Within weeks, Cathari commanders no longer trusted their own sensors. Every blip on their screens could be real or fake. The uncertainty paralyzed them. Lieutenant Petrov worked with Federation tacticians to develop new battle formations. He threw away the old textbooks and created new ones. Formations that flowed like water. Formations that adapted in real time. Formations that no enemy could predict because they were always changing. And Admiral Wright watched it all, planning the next move in a game of interstellar chess. "We've shown we can win battles," he told Vexthar one evening. "Now we need to win the war. That's a different challenge." How do we do that? By breaking their will to fight. The Cathari are aggressive, but they're also practical. They keep fighting because they're winning. They expect to keep winning. Once they start losing consistently, they'll have to reconsider. Our job is to make losing so painful that continuing the war becomes impossible for them. And how do we make it painful? Wright smiled his predator's smile. "Remember what I said about supply lines." The supply line attacks began 3 weeks later. Task Force Hammer stopped engaging Cathari warfleets directly. Instead, they hunted convoys, fuel ships, transport vessels, communication relays, all the unglamorous targets that kept a war machine running. The Cathari did not understand at first. They strengthened their main fleets, waiting for the decisive battle that never came. Meanwhile, their ships started running low on fuel. Their soldiers went hungry. Their communications became unreliable. Commander Thex and the Starlight destroyed 14 supply ships in 1 month. They never fought fair. They attacked at night cycles when crews were tired. They struck during ion storms when sensors were blind. They hit fast and ran faster. The Cathari never saw them coming and rarely saw them leave. "They're calling us cowards," Thex reported. "Their propaganda says we are afraid to face them in real battle." "Let them say what they want," Park replied. "Their opinion doesn't matter. Their supply situation does. Every ship they can't fuel is a ship that can't fight. Every soldier they can't feed is a soldier who questions why they're fighting. Words are wind. Logistics is reality." The pressure built. Cathari commanders demanded more escort ships for their convoys, but escort ships came from the main fleet. The main fleet grew weaker. Federation forces began winning conventional engagements that they would have lost months ago. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Admiral Wright kept pushing. He sent small teams deep into Cathari space to plant devices that disrupted their communications. He organized information campaigns that spread discontent among their conquered populations. He found weaknesses in their command structure and exploited them ruthlessly. "You fight without honor," the Cathari Supreme Commander sent in a message. "You hide and strike from shadows. Face us properly like warriors." Wright composed a simple reply, "We fight to win." The war had begun to turn. 6 months after the human officers arrived, the Cathari requested peace talks. Admiral Vexthar could barely believe it. The enemy who had seemed unstoppable was now asking for terms. Their fleet had lost a third of its strength. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their conquered territories were rising in rebellion. They had had enough. "We accept the Federation's terms," the Cathari representative said. "We will withdraw from all occupied systems. We will pay reparations for war damages. We ask only for safe passage home." The treaty was signed in a ceremony that felt surreal. Federation diplomats spoke of peace and understanding. Cathari representatives looked tired and defeated. Human officers stood in the background, saying little. Afterward, Vexthar found Wright alone on an observation deck, watching the stars. "You saved us," Vexthar said. "The Federation owes humanity an immense debt." Wright shook his head. "We didn't save you. We just showed you how to save yourselves. The Federation had the resources, the technology, the personnel. You had everything you needed except the right mindset. We provided that. The mindset of killers. The mindset of survivors. Humans aren't special because we're violent. Lots of species are violent. We're special because we survived despite the violence. We learned to adapt, to improvise, to never stop fighting even when things looked hopeless. That's what we taught you." Vexthar considered this. The human perspective was still strange to him, still uncomfortable, but he could not argue with results. "What happens now?" he asked. "The war is over. Will humans go back to being ignored by the Federation?" "That's up to the Federation, but I don't think you can go back to the way things were. You've seen what humans can do. You've worked alongside us. You've learned from us. That changes things." "It does," Vexthar agreed. "The Council is already discussing expanded human roles in Federation governance. There is talk of establishing permanent human advisory positions in military command. Some are even suggesting a human might one day lead the entire fleet." Wright laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still the new kids here. We have a lot to learn from the older species too. The best part of this whole thing wasn't the human tactics or the Federation technology. It was the combination. Different perspectives working together. That's what made it work." Vexthar nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. The Federation's strength had always been diversity, hundreds of species bringing different gifts. They had just forgotten that conflict could be a gift too. "Will you stay?" Vexthar asked. "There will be other threats, other challenges. We could use your help." "Some of us will stay, some will go home, but Earth is part of the Federation now. Really part of it, not just sitting in the corner. When you need us, we'll be there." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Out there, the galaxy continued its endless dance. Civilizations rose and fell. Species evolved and disappeared. The universe did not care about peace treaties or military victories. But for this moment, in this place, the beings who called themselves intelligent had found a way to work together. They had faced destruction and survived. They had learned from each other. And humanity had finally found its place among the stars. 1 year later, Admiral Wright returned to Earth. He had been offered a permanent position in the Federation fleet, but he felt it was time for others to carry the torch. A new generation of human officers were making their mark. They did not need him anymore. General Chen met him at the Pentagon, looking older but pleased. "You did well," she said. "The entire Federation knows what humans can do now. We're not the primitive newcomers anymore." "No," Wright agreed. "But we have to be careful. Being useful for war is a dangerous identity for a species. We showed them our fangs. Now we need to show them everything else. Our art, our science, our philosophy, our music." The scientists are already working on exchange programs. Human artists are getting invitations to Federation cultural events. Our philosophers are joining academic councils. We're expanding beyond the military role. Good, we're more than just warriors. The Federation needs to see that. Chen handed him a data pad. The president wants to give you a medal. Big ceremony, lots of press coverage. The usual. Right side. I was afraid of that. I don't want medals. I just want to go fishing, sit by a lake, not think about tactics for a while. You can fish after the ceremony. This is important, James. Not for you, but for the people. They need heroes, especially human heroes who helped save the galaxy. The galaxy was not in danger, just a few hundred systems. Details. The story matters. How we tell it shapes how we think about ourselves. And I want humanity to think of itself as part of something bigger, not apart from the Federation, but essential to it. Wright looked at the data pad. The medal ceremony was scheduled for next week. He would have to wear his dress uniform, which he hated. He would have to make a speech, which he hated more. But Chen was right. The story mattered. Fine, he said, but I'm not saying anything about tactics or battles. I want to talk about partnership, about learning, about the Federation species who fought alongside us and died alongside us. They're the real heroes. Chen smiled. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. The ceremony was held in the United Nations building, the same place where Earth had first decided to join the Galactic Federation 50 years ago. Representatives from dozens of species attended. Admiral Vexthar came in person, along with Commander Thex, Lieutenant Park's former student who had become a legendary captain in his own right. Wright stood at the podium, looking out at a sea of faces, both human and alien. He thought about everything that had happened. The desperate request from a losing fleet, the skeptical Federation officers, the long months of fighting and learning and adapting, the victory that had seemed impossible. I stand here today, he began, not as a conqueror or a war hero. I stand here as one small part of a much larger effort. When the Federation asked humanity for help, we answered. But we did not win this war alone. We won it together. He talked about the Federation crews who had trusted their strange human advisors, about the officers who had put aside centuries of tradition to try new things, about the species who had fought and died alongside humans in battles across the stars. Humanity has spent most of its history fighting itself, he said. We are very good at war, perhaps too good, but this experience has taught us something important. We are even better at peace, at cooperation, at finding common cause with others. The Federation accepted us, taught us, worked with us. In return, we gave what we had to give. That exchange is the true victory here. He paused, looking at Vexthar in the front row. Admiral Vexthar once asked me what makes humans special. I told him it was our refusal to surrender, even when all seems lost. But I was only partly right. What makes humanity special is the same thing that makes every Federation species special. We are different. We think differently. We approach problems differently. And when we combine those differences, when we work together instead of apart, there is nothing in this galaxy we cannot overcome. The applause was thunderous. Humans and aliens standing together, celebrating not just a victory but a partnership. Wright felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he also felt proud, not of himself but of what they had all built together. Afterward, Vexthar approached him. The old admiral looked better than he had a year ago. The shadows under his 4 eyes had lightened. The weight on his shoulders had eased. That was a good speech, Vexthar said. You meant it. Every word. The Federation Council has made a decision. We are creating a new position, strategic advisor to the High Command, a permanent role for human military experts to work with Federation leadership, not just in war but in peace, to help us think about challenges in new ways, to bring the human perspective to all our problems. That's a big step. It is. Many still resist it. They say humans are too young, too aggressive, too different. But the war taught us that different can be valuable. Your General Chen has already submitted candidates for the position. We hope you will consider it as well." Wright shook his head. "I'm retiring for real this time. Going to buy a boat, sail around some quiet ocean, catch some fish. Let the younger generation handle things. They're ready." Vexthar made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You humans and your water vessels. I will never understand it." "That's okay. You don't have to understand everything about us. Just like we don't understand everything about you. That's what makes it interesting." They stood together for a moment, two warriors from different worlds who had learned to work together. "Thank you," Vexthar said finally, "for everything. Thank you for trusting us. That was the hard part. That was the real victory." They shook hands in the human custom, then parted. Wright walked out of the building into the sunshine of an Earth afternoon. He took a deep breath of the air of his homeworld and smiled. The galaxy was vast and strange. There were threats out there that the Federation had not yet imagined. There would be more wars, more crises, more challenges, but humanity was ready now, not just to fight but to lead, to teach, to learn. The primitives had proven their worth, and this was only the beginning. In Fleet Command Station Nexus, Lieutenant Park was training a new batch of Federation officers in human tactical methods. She had become a captain now, respected throughout the fleet. Commander Thex was leading a joint human-alien crew on patrol near the former front lines. Captain Santos was building an intelligence network that spanned dozens of systems, preventing threats before they could grow dangerous. The humans had integrated into the Federation not as subordinates or superiors, but as partners, equal members of a community that spanned the stars. It was what General Chen had always wanted, what Admiral Wright had worked toward without fully realizing it. And somewhere on a quiet beach on Earth, James Wright finally caught that fish he had been dreaming about. It was not a large fish. It was not impressive, but it was his, and he had earned it through patience and skill and luck. He looked up at the stars and raised his drink in a silent toast. To the Federation, to humanity, to the future. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Different species, different minds, different ways of seeing the universe, but united in purpose, united in hope, united in the understanding that together they were stronger than any of them alone. The galaxy was vast, the future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time it looked bright.